Hey, what's up? It's Chris from evenflowcc.com. Back and tanner than ever, seeing as it's been a couple months since I said I would be back immediately with part two of the nonverbal video. Got a couple of my little furry friends behind me. Jeffrey, the 4 pound Pomeranian, is downstairs eating his dinner, so if you hear death snarls, that's because one of the other dogs got a little too close to him. But don't worry, we'll be okay. But if you remember last time, I was going to say last week, but obviously that's not the case. I said that 93% of the meaning that we get from a communicated message comes from the nonverbals. Only 7% comes from the words that we actually say. And I talked about a certain case study, or I said in the next video I'd mention a case study, and that was about the Nixon and Kennedy debate back in 1960. And you might have heard about this. It was the first televised presidential debate. And if you listen to it on the radio, you felt that Nixon pretty handily won. However, if you watched it on TV, you thought that Kennedy won. And that happened for a couple of different reasons. I'm going to link to a video below that kind of goes into it a little bit. It's just a 2 or 3 minute video from the History Channel. But ultimately, what happened was Nixon was sweaty with a 5 o'clock shadow, and Kennedy, as we all know, was a good looking dude. And he played to the camera. And that's where these nonverbals really start to come in. And physical appearance is definitely a nonverbal form of communication. But he talked to the camera rather than straight to the moderators. And Nixon was talking more to the moderators and just appeared very nervous and very sweaty. If you look at the entire debate, which you can find, you can see him at several points taking out his handkerchief and wiping his face. So it kind of became style over substance in some cases. But I want you to pay attention to it and realize that nonverbals really are important. I'm also going to link to Ronald Reagan's Challenger speech that he gave after the Challenger explosion in 1986. And this is another one that you might have seen in the past. But I remember being in the first grade watching it that night after seeing it happen while we were in school and just being really touched by it even back then. Now, when you watch it, it's not only the words that he's saying, which in and of themselves are very touching, but it's the way that he says them. And I want you to really focus on that. Now that we're focusing on nonverbals, I want you to pay attention to those nonverbals and the way he's saying those words and the way that, his voice is rising and the way that he's really talking to you. You feel like he's talking to you. It's like listening to your grandfather. But one of the things that he's really a master at is those vocal pauses where he pauses, and not 10 and 15 seconds what we think a pause would be, but just a beat here and a beat there, and just listen to those and listen to how effective those are, and try to pay attention to yourself when you are talking to a friend or a roommate or something, and see how those nonverbals naturally leak into your speech and your conversations, and really focus in on those. And I want you to get a sense of how much nonverbal communication really does play into our everyday communication. So take a look at those two videos and leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Subscribe to the channel. This is something we'll talk about more in the future because it is such an important form of communication that we don't really think about too much, even though we do it every day. Every word that comes out of our mouth is both verbal and nonverbal in some sense. So yeah, let me know what you think, and let's have a conversation and a dialogue about this. And we'll talk to you next time.